Okay, we're mobile today. Vikings, Colts tomorrow. Lot to discuss. For one thing, I've never in my life seen a team be 10-3 and have the fan base be as just toxic and mean as Vikings fans have been this week. The Vikings fans are just dickheads this week. I've seen more so-called fans out there basically saying that they want to lose out, they don't care anymore. They don't care about the playoffs. That we're going to get destroyed in the playoffs by 80 points, so we don't even want to get to the playoffs. All this shit. Like, we lost a game. Okay, it happens. We lost a game, and yes, we lost a game that we should have won, but the defense was horrible and gave us no shot, and that sucked. Like, it sucks that we lost that game. You know, I wish we had won. I wish we already locked up the North, but it didn't happen. You don't need to respond. People don't need to respond that way by just becoming like toxic assholes, like they've been for the last couple years when we were, you know, in a big hole early in the season, and we're just, you know, desperately trying to dig our way out for the whole season and could never do it. It's like, this is a very different situation, but I'm constantly amazed, and we haven't seen it this year because we only had lost 2 games before last week. But the way this fan base deals with defeat, it's really ridiculous sometimes. And yet these are a lot of the same people who talk about how the Vikings are you know, a loser franchise or whatever. It's like, well, if they're such losers and they've never won a Super Bowl, on and on and on. Well, then why are you having such trouble dealing with a week 14 loss to Detroit? It's just not. It doesn't make sense to me. But I feel like this fan base is just. It kind of shows that this fan base is just, or a segment of it. I always should preface that with, like, it's not every fan, it's not even most fans, but there's a segment of this fan base, so-called fans, who clearly for 3 months plus now have just been waiting for an opportunity to turn on this team for whatever reason. Maybe they don't like. Maybe it's just goes back to the hatred of Kirk. Maybe it's maybe it's them not blowing up the roster and doing a long rebuild, which of course is always it always leads to long-term success. Or whatever it is. I mean, yeah, it's a division loss, but the toxicity in this fan base the last week has really been ridiculous to me and disgusting and really embarrassing, I think. But the other big thing for the week, anyway, has been the Heat really getting on Ed Donatel, and deservedly so. Like, I don't feel like he cares. I don't feel like this guy really cares. And he did his press conference on Wednesday, I believe, and he didn't do anything to indicate to me that he does care. It was just a lot of BS. And, you know, just like, hey, we want to do this, well, then do it. Like, you show nothing on the field that indicates that you want to pressure the quarterback better, that you want to cover receivers better. It's this, because the big thing that came from this thing the other day was, it was basically like, I took it as he was basically blaming everything on the players. It's like, no, it's execution. It's not got nothing to do with the scheme. It's the execution. Well, that's a roundabout way of saying none of it is my fault. It's just the players. Well, I don't buy that for a second. There are some people who do buy it. There are some people who just see that we had the defenses the last 2 years that were oftentimes very bad. Now, they were oftentimes very bad with a lot of injuries, but they were very bad, and they're just like, okay, it's not Donatel's not to blame at all. It is the players. These players are all washed up. I don't buy that. We don't have the personnel, I don't think, to have a defense like we had in 2017, but we certainly have a better personnel than what it looks like out on the field. And everyone can see it. Everyone can see that players like Danielle Hunter, as the big one, are being basically sabotaged. Like, their whole skill set is just being ignored, so we can run this Donatel scheme that isn't working. And Donatel, based on this based on this week and what he said, he doesn't see it that way. He sees it that his scheme is perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just the players need to execute better. He was like, well, you know, with Hunter, like, oh, well, it takes the whole season to learn. No, it doesn't take a whole season for a guy who's been in the league for, you know, 7-8 years like Hunter. You know, you're not, you know, it just doesn't work with him. It just doesn't work with him. It doesn't work with any of these guys. Like, and there's not some magic switch that's going to get flipped that's going to make the scheme work now going into week 15 when it hasn't worked for basically the previous 13 games. So, but yeah, there has been a lot of heat on Donatell in this defense, and like this is the first time really all year, because you know, a lot of these other games, like even the Dallas debacle, like that was such a debacle. It wasn't like anyone was really singling out the defense, but you know, and some of these other games where the defense, you know, obviously the defense gave up a lot of yards and points to New England. They gave up a lot of yards and points to the Jets, but we won those games. We were able to, you know, get it done on offense. You know, make comebacks or hold them off in the case of the Jets. You know, so they got away with it there. So it still wasn't like the talker. Now it is the talker, and we'll see if there's anything like that. Like we'll see tomorrow if there's any alterations at all. I'm not really optimistic that there's going to be much in the way of change, because Donatell's basically made it clear that he thinks everything he's doing is perfect, and I suspect that he just doesn't care, and he probably doesn't even care if he's here next year, because I feel like he's taken this job as a retirement gig with a young coach who probably isn't going to figure into having him here long term anyway, because it's like he's going to be here long term. Well, Donatell's not going to coach for 10 years. I mean, that's just not how it's going to go. So, you know, he figures, okay, well, I'll just cash a few more paychecks. That's really, I genuinely feel like that's pretty much what's going on here. Because then when he comes out this week and gives that BS about, you know, oh, the scheme is fine, it's just the execution. You know, we want to do this, we want to do that. Well, they're not showing anything. They're not showing it. Like, if you want to do it, well, then do it. Like, unless he thinks these players are all just ignoring him. He didn't say anything like that, but you know, like, do it. Like, let's see more than a 4-man rush against the Colts. Let's see, you know, pressuring receivers more. Like something, blitz once in a while, for God's sakes, man. But you know, and you know, I'm sure that adds to some of the negativity. It's like it feels so weird for there to be negativity around a 10-3 team that has already vastly exceeded the expectations of most people. But you know, for this game, like we got some injuries again. We are getting Darisaw back. We are getting Harrison Smith back. I still suspect that last week, a lot of these guys some of these guys who were out, they could have played if it was like a do or die type of game. And I am going to keep wondering these final 4 weeks what the team's motivation, like, because we're going to be a 2 or 3 seed. It's going to be one or the other. You know, do you want to go all out to secure a 2 seed? I don't know. You're getting a home game week 1 regardless. It would change what would happen in week 2 with a win. But obviously it would change who you play in the first round. But you know, I don't know how much they care about going all out to be the 2 seed over the 3 seed. And as far as the 2 seed, the 49ers, they're not losing again. They just keep winning. I actually thought they would lose last night because it was a short week. No Deebo Samuel. They're going on the road. I mean, it's not a huge trip from San Francisco to Seattle, but still a road game in the division against a Seahawks team that's fighting to get in the playoffs themselves, to stay in the playoffs. And the 49ers won that kind of convincingly. I think they won by 8, but the Seahawks scored late to to cut it to 8. So it was pretty much a one-sided game the whole way. Like they're not going to lose. I don't know that they're going to lose again, because I think they have they have 3 games left. I think the only team they play left that's going to might be able to get them is Washington, and I think that one's in San Francisco. So even that's going to be pretty tough. So San Francisco is probably going to win out, which means the Vikings have to win out to get to keep the 2 seed, and they can do that. I mean, home to the Colts, home to the Giants, at Green Bay, who knows what they're going to be, at Chicago, who knows what they're going to be putting out there. Like, you could win those 4 games, but you might have to win. I really think at this point you're going to have to win out to keep that 2 seed, because the 49ers are just not going to lose. I mean, and you would say if you don't get the 2 seed, that would set up, if you do win your first playoff game, you're probably going to San Francisco in the second round. Now, if we hosted San Francisco, that would be really tough too. Like I might pick San Francisco to win that game, because San Francisco is just really good. Like all the talk about Philadelphia, San Francisco might be better, because they're doing this now with a Mr. Irrelevant quarterback. But we're gonna probably have to win out to keep the 2 seed, and that's certainly a concern. Like I've been zeroed in on that 2 seed for a while, because I always thought the 1 seed was a real pipe dream. But there's a good chance we might fall to 3 if we don't win out. I think we will beat the Colts. I think we'll get it done this week. I think it'll be a tight game, because we play tight games, and I don't see the defense doing a whole lot different. And of course O'Connell also came out during the week and said that he wasn't planning any changes with the coaching staff, wasn't going to take away play calling duties from Donatel. None of that. I mean, I get it. Like, even the people who are mad, like, they have to understand this is a rookie head coach with a veteran coordinator. It's his first head coach job. Like, it's a really tricky precedent to set to go out and fire a guy, or even just to strip him of play calling. Like, at this point in the season, it's a winning season. It ain't a winning season because of the defense, but it's a tricky spot for O'Connell, and I don't envy him being in that spot, because then he gets ripped too for, like, then people spin it like, oh, he doesn't really even care, like, oh, he's just going down with the ship. I don't believe that. I just think and we don't know what's being said behind the scenes, but I think it's unlikely that there's going to be anything drastic with Donatel, even if they go out this week and get lit up again on defense. I just don't see a lot of change being made there at this point. You're kind of gonna ride it out, hope that the offense. I mean, we have an offense that when they're on their game, they can outscore just about anybody. They can certainly outscore the 4 teams we have left on our schedule. And I think we will get it done against the Colts. Matt Ryan's back at quarterback for them. They can run the ball. Obviously, the Colts have been pretty bad this year, but they're off their bye. They just had their bye, and before their bye, they got beat 54-19 by Dallas. They gave up like 30 points in the 4th quarter, but that was a close. That was, I mean, for what it's worth, that was a competitive game into the 4th quarter. So, I mean, they can't just show up and win. Tomorrow, the Vikings can't just show up and win, but I think they will win. Being at home is going to help a lot. Getting Darisaw back, I'm sure we're going to have a better run game in this one than we did the last one. Harrison Smith back helps. We got some guys who are questionable. We got Hunter with the little neck thing. Now, people were freaking out about Hunter in the neck. Like, sounds like he's a pretty good bet to be able to play, but they could rest a guy. Like they did it last week. They could play it safe with some of these guys. But yeah, Hunter and Harrison Phillips. Well, I think he's going to play. It sounded like saw a quote or two from him where it sounded like he's questionable, but he's going to play. Patrick Jones was questionable. Dantzler's questionable. I think his was an illness, some mystery illness going around. And then who was it on offense? Oh, Bradbury is still listed as questionable. I could maybe see them sitting Bradbury again. He's been dealing with like a back thing. You don't want to. Again, it's like how all out do you? I mean, they still have to clinch the division. They will do that. I think even there's a chance that the Lions might lose this week. Although I think I saw Zach Wilson's playing QB again for the Jets, so that probably removes that possibility. But you want to win it on your own. Like, let's just get it done. Get it done. Beat the Colts at home. Clinch the division. Then you can breathe, because then you're officially in. And then, you know. Oh, and of course, the other thing that was ridiculous in the last couple of days is the Vikings put out that they were making some playoff tickets available, and which is standard business. And people were ripping on the Vikings for like, oh, well, you're not even in the playoffs yet. You're selling playoff tickets. What are you doing? It's like, it's standard business, for God's sakes. I had as a season ticket holder, I had to reserve my playoff tickets back in like August. Like, this is just standard business. This is how it's done. But people are like, oh, the Vikings are being presumptuous, just thinking that they're in the playoffs already when they're not. Like, there's, you know, every team out there that's you know, the Titans haven't clinched the division. They're selling playoff tickets too. Like, this is standard business. You don't wait until the very very last moment. You sell a ticket, and for some goddamn reason they don't end up posting a playoff game, then they just issue a refund. It's not that complicated. It's not. They're not doing some, you know, it's not some jinx for the team. But yeah, we'll get it. I think we'll get it done. I think it's going to be like a 30 to 24, 30 to 26 type of game. I think that, you know, it's going to be another one of these tight games. I mean, because we don't shut teams down, because I feel like our defensive coordinator doesn't want to shut teams down because he doesn't care. But I think the offense will be, you know, offense was pretty good against Detroit. We just had a couple of little, you know, we had the absurd Dalvin would-be pass turned fumble. I don't think any of that stuff's gonna, you know, happen again. Better not. But I think being at home will be a big difference, and having just a couple of guys back, having Darisaw back for the first time in a few weeks will be a big help. You know, certainly for the run game. And yeah, I think they'll get it done. We'll be able to just relax the rest of the weekend as division champs, and then you know, figure out where we're going from there. But yeah, it's, of course, even a win now, that, you know, there's a certain segment of this fan base that's just not going to be happy, because they're toxic. They're just awful people. They're just awful fans. I don't get it. Like, there's things to pick apart with this team, but they're 10-3. They're about to be a division champ. They're about to be a division champ for the first time in 5 years. Like, this should be a time where most fans are in a good mood. Yeah, we lost last week, but we've also won a lot of games, and we're going to win some more games. And I'm not writing this team off for the playoffs either. I think that's ridiculous. Now, long term, like deep into the playoffs, with this kind of defense, they would have to buck some major historical trends to go like real deep in the playoffs. But we have an offense that, when they're on their A game, they can score with or score better than just about anybody, and I think they can do it. And so yeah, I guess that's about it. So hopefully the win, and just bring some positivity back to just the talk about the team, because this has been a really annoying week. I don't get it. I don't get how you can be 10-3 and be this negative about your team. It's like, yeah, they're not perfect. They may not be better than Philadelphia or San Francisco, and they may not have a chance in the playoffs against either of those teams, especially if their defense doesn't compete. But can't we just worry about that then? Like, can't we just enjoy the rest of this season and see what happens in the playoffs? because we're gonna have a home playoff game against someone who is not San Francisco or Philadelphia. So we have a pretty damn good shot to at least get out of the first round. And then you never know what can happen. Look at last year. You had a 10-7 Bengals team go to the Super Bowl. You had a third-seeded Rams team that looked really bad late in the season. They came in here, I think it was the day after Christmas last year, and Matt Stafford tried to throw about 10 interceptions, and they somehow won anyway. But like they were bad at the end of the season, and then they go to the Super Bowl. And we almost had the 49ers, I think, were 10-7 last year, and they damn near beat the Rams to go to the Super Bowl. Like, stuff can happen. So to just completely write off this team that has already had a hell of a season, I think is madness. But I think I think there's a segment of this fan base that just wants to always lose, and they're upset when we win because they don't know how to react to wins. They can't enjoy a regular season because all they want to think about is what might happen that's wrong in the playoffs. Well, that's a horrible way to follow a football team. Because then you can never enjoy anything. You can't enjoy the regular season success because you're worried about playoff failure. And even if you have some playoff success, well, you're worried about the playoff failure that might come the next week. It's just a really horrible way to live, horrible way to follow a team. But this is what they want to do, and I don't understand it at all. But I can certainly see things to screw us over in the playoffs, but we ain't in the playoffs yet. We don't have to worry about that yet. Let's just get the division. Stick a fork finally in the Lions for the division. Although I think the Lions are in the playoffs. I think that is almost a lock at this point. They are going to get in because Seattle is falling apart. The Giants are falling apart. Giants and Washington play this week, so someone's going to get a loss unless they tie for the second time. That would be interesting. I don't know how that would work out for tiebreakers or for records and stuff. But anyway, I've rambled far too long. Vikings 30, Colts 24. We'll get it done. We'll get to celebrate the whole weekend clinching the NFC North, and then we can. Why are you standing in the road? And then go from there. And then we get the Giants coming in here on Christmas Eve for the whiteout, the big whiteout. Everyone's excited. So anyway, for the skeptics, for the cynics, just try to have some faith in your fucking football team. I know half of this football team is kind of a mess right now, but this is still a pretty damn good football team that has had a pretty damn good season to this point, and hopefully is going to give us a few more highlights here before everything wraps up. So I've run out of driving, and I've run out of talking, and so I'm going to stop talking. But yeah, 30-24 Vikings. That is the official prediction. And if I'm wrong, well, this will be an interesting week then, as everyone will assume the sky is falling. But I don't think that'll happen. So go Vikes.